Hey guys, welcome back to the Chessyard. This is Dhere Bagga, and today I'll be showing you one of the interesting games that I played, which is also known as the Nimzo Larsen Attack, as my opponent started off with, and I will show how to respond to such lines. First of all, let's try and understand what this attack is all about. So, generally, the idea of this attack is after you move pawn b3, you start off with black generally starts off with e4 here, trying to take control of the center. Now, white would develop his bishop on b2, and probably you have to now save it. So, you will start developing your knight as well on c6. Now, opponent would generally move e3 here, where you respond with the center pawn of d5, and now, sorry, the bishop comes on b5, trying to pin the knight here, with the idea that now he can capture this pawn on e5 with his bishop. So generally, you would develop your bishop as well, trying to attack here. And what I have observed over that period of time is that not knight f3 comes on these lines, but rather pawn f4 is played generally, which is a very attacking option. You can actually give him a check once, but that only stops for a moment. Then you get back here. Then your idea would probably be to go for the bishop exchange. But yeah, this is how the Nimzowitch Larsen attack looks like. Uh, and the whole point is that this pawn is always vulnerable. If you try to capture, the bishop lies on this diagonal and your rook will be hanging. In these cases, generally you would see is king would be castled on the queen side after development. Suppose knight to f3, knight to c3, followed by knight f6 here, queen to e5, followed by castling on the king side here, and castling can happen on the queen side. This is how some Nimzo Larsen attack games would look like. But yeah, let's start off with the game that I had played today because I knew these lines from before. I knew how to control these lines. So I didn't give him this center pawn at all. So yeah, let's start off with the game. He started off with pawn b3. I responded with c6 here. So I knew that his whole point is to break the center very quickly. I didn't give him that center immediately. I moved. He moved then bishop b2. I responded with pawn d5. Then he follows it up with pawn e3. I develop my knight here on d7. Now, if you see that only one game has been played here, that amongst the top-rated players, and that went in the favor of white in 2009, as per the Leach's database. Also, the idea behind playing the knight on d7 here was if I develop my knight on f6, white can go for exchanging it because then my pawn structure will be spoiled, which is never good for any side that is playing. Then he develops his knight on f3. I respond with pawn e6 rather than going for the center and giving away some pawn exchange. So now the game has completely translated into something which probably even he didn't see before. That's why he didn't know the continuation here, how to go about it. So yeah, knowing the lines is very important so that you can handle the attack in a better way. Now he went for the knight exchange here, and I thought that I will take it back because now I'm freeing my diagonal for bishop as well. Also, my knight wasn't doing much over there, blocking the queen as well as the bishop. So I captured it. He takes back with the bishop, and now I develop my other knight on the e7 square. Now, with the idea that next move from my knight would be g6, irrespective of the fact what he plays here. He develops his queen on g4, and I respond with knight g6 here, trying to kick away the bishop from here, which retrieves the b2 square. And now I move my pawn e5. Now there are no multiple attackers on the e5. Plus, this blocks the diagonal of the bishop. Also, to be noticed that there's a discover attack on the queen. So yeah, a good move for black here. He takes back the queen on g3, and I push my pawn forward on e4. Now the idea behind e4 was that if he moves f4 here, uh, offer me an n percent, I can take it, but then my e file will get opened. I can which I can block with my pawn, with my bishop on e6, then develop my queen probably on b6 here, and then castle on the queen side, which will be very good for black. So I went ahead and pushed the pawn to e4. He develops his knight on a3, probably, not probably, actually it's a very bad move, because he cannot come on the b5, he cannot come on c4. Both are being guarded with my pawns already, so a very bad square for knight here. You should never develop your pieces on inactive squares. It's not a good idea. The knight will be useless throughout the game now. So now I develop my pawn f6, with the idea that I'm closing this diagonal, and then I can develop my bishop, maybe even go for the trade-off between my dark square bishop and knight, which will generally not be a good idea, because dark square bishop is one of the key attackers for black. Sometimes a key defender as well, depending on which side you are castling. So a good piece to have. So I didn't want to lose it immediately. Uh, he castles on the queen side as expected, uh, and then I threaten the queen with my bishop by moving bishop to d6. Now he moves f4, giving me an n% offer, which I took it. Now he takes back with the queen, and now I have an option to castle, but I denied it because I still wanted to wait for it. I moved knight to e5, threatening the queen there. Now he has to move his queen somewhere. He makes it back to f2, which is again a bad square because I started challenging it again by moving knight to g4. Uh, and here I think some refutation happened. He moved to f3. I came back to e5. Then again he moved back to f2. We both are going for the same pattern because I didn't want to lose that attacking option of knight around the queen. He didn't want to give up on the good square that he was at. So after some repetition, he breaks it because he wanted to go for a win here. Even I would have actually broke the repetition here because that was just to trouble him a bit, irritate him with a bit with my same moves. After he moves his queen back, I get my knight back again on e5, making sure the center is controlled by me. And now he falls into the trap. He moves pawn d4, a very bad move for him because now I will be able to get the rook because the queen and rook both are in the same diagonal of the bishop. And he has to save his queen for obvious reasons. He moves his queen away, and I capture the rook now. So an exchange that would go in the favor of black. Now here he captured my knight first, and that was a time where I thought that okay, let me first evaluate what to capture with what, because these exchanges can go very bad in your favor. Now, if I suppose capture with the bishop, he would first take the bishop as well, and then I once I take back the bishop, my light square bishop will also be gone. So my bishop pair would be completely gone here. So rather, I thought I'll capture with the pawn here, also making sure that the center is controlled by the pawns. In future, if required, now I can castle on the king side as well as the queen side, and that would not be bad at all for me. He takes the bishop by moving queen d1, and now I started attacking by developing my queen on g5, which he responds with queen on f3. And it's very simple. If your queen is on the f file, you will not be able to castle on the king side. So I just placed the rook in front of the queen, so he has to move it. He moves it to e7 with the idea that he will stop my castling. But here my plan wasn't to castle so fast again. I'm still waiting for the attack first now, that why to castle I can castle it anytime later. So I get my queen on e7. with the idea that I can now go for the exchange. I can capture this knight. He takes back with the bishop, and I get a piece extra if he doesn't save it here. And that's what happened in the game. He developed the bishop here. He missed that there's a double attack on the knight, and there's only one defender. So after which I captured the knight, and now he has to probably give away his bishop here. So he first rather chose to capture my pawn on the h file with the idea that anyways this bishop will be exchanged. Why to let queen come to the a3 square and start gobbling these pawns on a and b file. Then I capture the bishop, giving him a check so that he has to take back now. And then I block the diagonal of white bishop as well, so that there is no further threat of this bishop. This bishop is actually useless. Can only go back to the e2 square. If he goes back to f1, he will be blocking his rook, so no point. And then now I castle to the queen side, aligning all my attackers towards the open files, making sure the solid pawn structure is unaffected with any of the attacks, if possible, are coming from here, which was actually nothing here that could have come. Moving these pawns would be actually way worse for him. So he gave me a check from g4 with his bishop. I moved my king to b8 with the idea that okay, you cannot keep giving me multiple checks. After some time, I will move to a8, which will be completely isolated for the king. Now he gets his queen on h3 here, and I challenge it with my rook on h8, and then he gives me a check on g3. And here I offered in the queen exchange actually. Rather than moving away my king, I thought I can actually go for the queen exchange. And once the queen exchange happens, I have two rooks, he has one rook and a bishop. So I'm in clear advantage here, and I will take off the game from here. Also, if he moves away his queen somewhere, suppose he goes for this piece, then I can actually capture this pawn as well, and then he has to take back with his rook, and then I capture with my queen. So that will be even worse for him. He is losing an additional pawn here. So he identified that, and he took away the queen on d6. I took back with my rook, and then he moves pawn h3 with the idea that if I align my bishop, my rooks, I cannot take the h3 pawn further. So I try to get on the open file with my rook on f6. He's trying here to protect his lone survivor there, e1 pawn, the isolated pawn to be precise, uh, doing nothing but just stopping my e4 pawn from proceeding further, which also I can actually just place my rook behind on one of these pawns and start pushing them forward. But here I thought I would rather go to the second rank that can from where I can control stuff. Also, this pawn is hanging for now, which he can move here. But then again, once I move my rook to g2, I'll be controlling this pawn. I'll be taking it later on. He now starts moving from the king side with a hope that he can probably break through, but there is no chance actually. So I captured the pawn first. Moves his pawn for ahead on the a5. I just stop the pawn by moving a6, and then he tries to get his rook on the d file with the idea that he can probably push the c pawn next to c4. If I go for the exchange, this empty file, he can probably make some use of it. But then I got my rook on f8. He tried to defend his pawn on c2 with the idea that because next move is pretty clear from black, coming on the f2, aligning on the second rank, and then trying to capture this pawn, the c2 pawn. That's what happened. I went there on f2, and he responds with pawn b4. And I actually thought that okay, I'll just take away this pawn next on the e file by moving my rook on uh, g3, and this is the moment the opponent resigns. So yeah, an opening, an attack that you can if you know the lines, you can actually control it. I knew the lines from before. I knew what white was doing from the beginning, so I could control it. So yeah, I hope this helps. And if one of your opponent plays it online or on the board, I hope you are able to handle it better. Uh, Let me know if I can improve in explaining these, or probably cover some other gambit or attack that would be helpful for you to understand the game better. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please do share, like, subscribe to my channel, and keep supporting. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye bye.